All right. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this lovely evening here at Gert Dog. Got a few in the crowd. I have done this talk a few times before. I did this talk last year as well at this festival, but we didn't have the projector. We didn't have the sound. The wonderful Stuart and John helping hold the space as the very early days of Gert Dog. But yeah, so my talk is going to be about King Arthur, a theory that has kind of come through to me. I do work as a trance medium as well, and I do guided visualizations, and this kind of came through the guided visualizations that I came through. But the great thing about King Arthur is that really, I always say there are as many stories of King Arthur as there are people telling them. And really, the King Arthur story is really a hero's quest. You know, it's the inward hero's quest to find your inner power. And it's got all the archetypes of the masculine and feminine present in it, in this growing story, because I think it's very much an evolving story. And the theory and the prophecy of King Arthur is that King Arthur will return, very much like Christ returning, and because Christ and King Arthur and also other such as Mithras and Osiris, they are all known as solar deities. So these solar deities are always returning, and they really return on these solar festivals that we recognize. And the biggest solar festival, yearly solar festival, is the winter solstice, where the sun dies and then is reborn 3 days later, which is exactly the same story as what we have for the most famous solar deity that we have in our consciousness now of Jesus, of Yeshua, that he died and then 3 days later he was risen again. So this story continues, and the return of Christ, the return of King Arthur, the return of many of the solar deities and the prophets that we have on our consciousness come back in the beginning of a new age. And we all know we're in the new age now. We're in the age of Aquarius, and we've only just come into the age of Aquarius, and Christ was the one that brought us into, and other prophets like Buddha and Muhammad and other prophets that brought us into the consciousness, the beginning of the Piscean age 2,000 years ago. And this is something called the precession of the equinox, where the sun moves through each of the zodiac constellations, and it came out of Pisces and it's coming into the age of Aquarius right now. So really the consciousness, the Christ consciousness is returning, and with that the King Arthur consciousness is returning. And I believe that the Christ consciousness that I think will really be the faith of the Aquarian age in the hearts and the minds of every man and woman, you know, upon the planet. That the Christ consciousness is really the returning of Christ, and as he said in the Bible, you know, was written that I will return, but I will not return alone, thinking, you know, that basically he returns in the hearts of everyone. And King Arthur, I think, was very much inspired by the Christ consciousness, but he was also very much of the Druid faith, the pagan faith, and the kind of more, I would see him more as a mystical warrior, you know, a mystic warrior, you know, warrior of light. If anybody has any questions, it's very informal. Just stop and ask me, you know, or if you have any input or anything like that, feel free to just tell me. Can everybody see this right? Sorry? Oh, just me going on about my shit. Yeah. Don't worry. Yeah, and I repeat stuff anyway. So more my shit. I mentioned the download that I got whilst doing a group visualization. I was in Boston, America, and I was traveling around doing channelings and healings and visualizations for different groups around the States, around New York area. And the lady asked me to do an hour-long visualization, and I normally only do like visualizations 10-15 minutes. So I kind of searched for some inspiration to how to fill an hour with visualizations, and I got this inspiration to do the divine feminine through the ages, to do the divine feminine of the past with the kind of Mary Magdalene energies, and then the divine feminine of the now, and then divine feminine of the future. And I never say what I'm going to do, very much, but I just went straight into it, and I saw that I was in the Wattle Church in Glastonbury Abbey. And I realised that it was kind of around the time of King Arthur, the 5th century, and I was witnessing or remembering a ceremony happening, and these beautiful women came through. And I realised that they were the Brigantia from Wales. So the Brigantia, also known as the Bridgets, they actually came into Glastonbury. There is evidence, historical evidence of the Brigantia, the Bridget followers coming into Glastonbury and building a community on what is now known as the Beckery Mound. Some of you probably know it, Bridie's Mound, Beckery Mound. The reason it was called the Beckery Mound, by the way, is because it's where the monks kept their bees, the beekeepery. Yeah, so that's. But most people know it as St. Bride's Mound because they built a beautiful chapel there and cottages where this small community lived. And there's also a story of King Arthur visiting the Bridget order, and 3 nights running he had a dream telling him to go into the chapel. And he went into the chapel, and he received this vision of a beautiful woman come to him. And after that vision that he had received, we believe that he was inspired to leave behind his more pagan druid traditions of the Pendragon, the dragon shield, and create a new shield of the equidistant cross. And then he built a shrine to this vision of this beautiful woman that came to him. He built a shrine where the Morrison's car park is nowadays in Glastonbury, which actually is behind the Catholic Church, which is called the Shrine of Our Lady St. Mary of Glastonbury. And the reason it is still the shrine that we believe that King Arthur, whoever he was, actually built in honor of this vision of the divine feminine. And that story kind of probably was what inspired the Mists of Avalon book, which maybe some of you are aware and have read somewhere down the line. But so there really is that feminine at the core of the King Arthur story. I won't go too much about that because I want to talk more about that a little bit later. So back to this vision that I was receiving in Boston, these beautiful Brigantias came in, and they held space in the Wattle Church. And then these Druids came in, and I felt that they were from Wales. So the Brigantia from Ireland and the Druids from Wales. And the Welsh Druids were called the Pendragons, and in Welsh, pen is head, pen, which actually I think it's more than head. I think it's to do with the pineal gland, the pineal gland in our head, which is kind of the physical third eye of our brain. And the dragons, of course, were the earth energies, the ley lines that these druids were working with, especially up in Wales, and probably even, as I could pinpoint it, to the Anglesey, the Isle of Anglesey. where Queen Boadicea had moved the Druids across the country after the Roman invasion, moved the Druids over to Anglesey, where they lived in peace, relative peace, and not really bothered with, because the Romans were actually shit scared of the Druids. They were not they were not very up for creating a war with the Druids, because the Romans actually believes very much in magic, and a lot of their religious cults, such as Mithras, which is a massive one that people know about. I mean, we don't know too much about it, but another cult, the Cybele cult, which was the kind of beginning of the celibacy in the Roman Catholic Church, because the Cybele cult was a gypsy cult that worshipped Mother Earth as Cybele, and there was a male protagonist, as there always is, the solar deity, and he wanted to get close to Mother Earth as much as possible, and he cut off his genitals to actually get close to Mother Earth, and that's where celibacy comes from. And the final straw that he actually did was he swallowed an acorn and killed himself, and he lay on the ground, and an oak tree grew out of his belly. That's why it's Cybele. The belly is also dedicated to Cybele as well, and that's how he finally got close to Mother Earth, by becoming this oak tree. And a lot of these stories actually you will find in the Roman Catholic Church, because the Roman Catholic Church was made up of all these Roman cults like Cybele and Mithras and Christianity and paganism and many others. So there's a lot of symbolism. A great book that Peter Knight has written, well worth. I always recommend it, because it's a fantastic book and full of coloured images as well, which I like as well. I don't like doing a lot of reading, as most people nowadays. And it's called Stolen Images. It's explaining where the Christian symbolism came from, because it's all been used for ancient time, the pagan times and Druid times, throughout the beginning of time. So the vision, I believe, was the King Arthur that I'll go into, who inspired the story of King Arthur, knowing that actually the story that we believe of King Arthur was written in the 12th century, the end of the 1100s, which I'll also go into a little bit later if I've got time, because I probably will run out of time, because I just go on and on. I do apologise, so I believe this vision was King Arthur, who I refer to as the historical Nordic king of Offa of Angel, created this ceremony after saving the lives of the British people from the invading Picts from Scotland, who were basically on a massive land grab and just massacring the Brits, because the Roman soldiers had basically abandoned them, returned to Rome, and left them to die, because the Britons were not warriors, because the Romans were warriors, basically, that were looking after them. So this ceremony, I believe, was between the Brigantia, who the Nordic and the Celtic people referred to as the bear goddesses, Artio, the bear goddess Artio, and the Pendragons were, of course, the Druids. So I believe this peace agreement that Offa of Angel, who I think inspired King Arthur, created a peace agreement to reunite the British Isles after being completely, disconnected from their history, from their past, by the Roman Empire. So this the Arthur Pendragon, I think, was actually a peace agreement between the balancing of the feminine from Ireland and the masculine from Wales. And you need that. You need, whoever this person was, or working with other druids, like the Merlin was the druids, he knew about magic and how to really successfully, recreate the energy of the ancient Isles of Britain. So yeah, I talked a little bit about Artio, the bear goddess, and she really very much connects to the priestess of the Druid faith, because of course in the Druid faith, even now and throughout from the very beginning, there was a balance of masculine and feminine. Some people, quite a lot of people, probably because of the Catholic Church, think that Druids are only men, and but that of course is not the case. The men in the Druid faiths, they are the ones that do the ceremony. They're very much on the stage, and they're kind of communicating. They're the public figures, as it were. They're out in the news, and they're the ones writing the books and things like that. Where the women are more the healers, the herbalists, and holding the space behind the scenes. They're not. But when you see the male Druids up on stage doing, or up in a sacred site doing ceremony, you will always see a woman next to that man, holding the space with them. So they also, the Druids, especially in the south of France, 2,000 years ago, which is now known as the Cathar country in the south of France. Anybody been to the Cathar country? None of you? Okay. So the Cathar country is basically the southeast of France, and this is where the family of Christ sailed from Israel over to the south of France, because they were going to be murdered basically by the Romans for continuing the teachings. But the Druids had seen in the stars that the family of Christ were going to come over, and they were waiting for the teachings that they had seen through the stars, especially the Star of Bethlehem that we all know from when we were in the nativity play when we were children. But they knew, they were seeing in the stars this happening, so they were waiting for Mary Magdalene to come and teach them the ways of the new age, which was the Piscean age. But really they were preparing the consciousness for the Aquarian age that 2,000 years into the future, because that's what this family were doing, because they had the knowledge, they had the divine knowledge, and they were sharing that. But then, of course, that knowledge was then kind of diluted and corrupted and kind of used more politically by the Roman Catholic Church, who were the ones actually crucifying Christ in the first place. So the women of the Cathars, who were Druids but had adopted the new kind of message of Christ, they were really inspired the Artios, the bear goddesses in Ireland. So that priestess knowledge spread throughout the Druid faith, and that's why they became known as the Bridgets, the Saint Bridget, because they had adopted the teachings of Christ through the feminine. And we're actually starting to know that now. It's taken us 2,000 years, the importance of the balance of divine masculine and the divine feminine, but it's really in our consciousness now. It's very special, very important. So the Pendragon, as I said already, is the Druid figure that the King Arthur story is very much associated with. We have that is the surname, but I don't think it was actually his name, but it is very much solid in the kind of the masculine knowledge. Although the Pendragon visualization that I mentioned here is what I believe that the ancient Druids would do when they traveled to a new community, a new place, that they would connect to the energies in the land as they arrive onto that site. They would find where the major ley lines cross, which is called a nodal point, and then they would hold the ceremony on that nodal point, where they would stand and meditate, connecting to the male and the female currents underneath them. The red current is the feminine, the white current is the masculine. Connect to that and then bring them up through the body, connecting to their kundalini. You can do this, as I said, if you want, just to connect to it. So they brought the ley lines, the serpent lines, up through the body, through the kundalini serpents, connecting the red serpent of the ley line with the inner serpent, the red serpent, the feminine serpent in your body, and then the white serpent of the masculine ley line into your masculine kundalini serpent. And then they would move, spiral up the chakras from the base to the sacral, to the solar, to the heart, to the throat, to the third eye. And when they reached the third eye, the serpents would bite the pineal gland, activating the pineal gland with the venom, because the venom of the serpent is not only poisonous but also healing, because the poisons are also used for medicines as well, and that would activate the pineal gland. Also, the electricity of the ley lines and the serpents in the body activates the pineal gland, and then they would have vision, and then they would send those serpents out to the different directions, into the north, connecting to the dragons of the earth, to the east, connecting to the dragons of the air, to the south, connecting to the dragons of the fire, and to the west, connecting to the dragons of the water. So that's how they connected to the new land. It's really, if you feel that you for example come to a festival in this sacred land that we're in now, and you feel, I don't feel welcome in this land, or I don't feel comfortable in this land, I don't know why, I don't know what. It's probably the earth energies are wondering who you are and want you to introduce yourself to that land. So if you remember, if you feel, if you're inspired to do this visualization, try it out. Try it out now with in your own time with this land. It does actually really connect you. It doesn't take long, just takes a minute or two to really connect to it. So that's the Pendragon, which I think was originally a visualization that was used many thousands of years ago. So this is the peace agreement that I mentioned, where offer of angel, right? So I'll tell you a little bit about him now, because this is who I think inspired the story of King Arthur. So I'm just checking yeah, okay, that's a better better one to have whilst I talk about it. So offer of angel, it actually is documented in the matter of Britain. So there was, in the 1200s, there was 3 major documents written, one in England, one in France, and one in Denmark. And these were really the kind of the main royal families of Europe, and probably of the the kind of the known world of the European people. And they wrote down the history of the kings. And in England, it was Geoffrey of Monmouth that wrote the history of the kings of England, and in Denmark it was called Saxo Grammaticus, and in France I'm actually not sure what it was called in France. Do you know? No. I should find that out, really, shouldn't I? It's only fair. So Saxo Grammaticus documented all of the verbal stories that were shared for thousands and thousands of years, and offer is stated in that book, and I was led to this figure through this vision. And when I read his story, I was just completely blown away, because basically his father, Wermund, King Wermund, in the land of Angle, which is the land between the Juts in Denmark and the Saxons in Germany. So it's a very small bit of land between Denmark and Germany. It doesn't exist anymore. They basically were constantly attacked from the south and from the north, so they were extremely powerful warriors. They had to be to survive. And King Wermund became disabled and elderly and was unable to fight, so he brought all the people of the community together and said, right, we need a great warrior to lead us into battle next week. Yeah, who's doing it? And everybody was silent. And suddenly, in the corner of the room, this little voice came out, and it was Offa, who was the son of Wermund. And everybody thought that Offa was actually mute, because he didn't say anything. but then he said something, and he said, "I'll do it, Father." And he said, "Who said that?" Because he thought that Werman was mute. And they said, "It's your son." Yeah, sorry, Offer was mute, sorry. Your son Offer. And he said, "I don't believe you. Bring him to me." So he brought the Offer came to his father, and Werman felt his face and, okay, it is you, Offer. So you are going to lead us into battle. He said, "Yep, Father, I will do that." And he said, "Why have you never spoken?" He said, "Well, I had nothing to say." And I believe if you have something to say, then everybody should listen. And I believe that I would not have been heard if I spoke my words. So now I really think I'm heard, and that you would take me seriously. So they did, and they trained him to be a great warrior. And he was a giant, teenage boy, well over probably 6 foot, as the Nordic people were, and the Britons were more like 4 or 5 foot, back in those days. So they tried to strap some armor onto him and gave him a sword, and every sword they gave him, he just smashed to pieces because he was so massive and so strong. And so Werman said, "Right, okay, I have a magical sword which I have buried in this field for safekeeping, so no one would steal it and take it out of the ground and use it against me. But if you help me find this sword, you can have it." Okay, so they went off into the field, and Offer dug around and kind of probably doused the field as well with dowsing rods, and he believed he found where the sword was, and the Werman, his father, agreed that it's probably there. So he dug and he pulled this sword out of the ground, like the story, The Sword in the Stone, which all of these stories are very, very symbolic. There's not just one actual fact of these stories. There are many facts. So he pulled this sword out of the ground. This sword was special because it was it was a crucible steel sword. I was going to bring the sword with me, actually, that I've got a crucible steel sword at home, but I didn't think it might be very good to bring it into a field. And a crucible steel sword was at that time only found in Sri Lanka. And these Nordic people, they were great boat builders and sailors, and they were explorers of the world, and they made friends with people from all over the world, and they were great travelers, as the Vikings were much later in the 9th and 10th century. So Werman had been gifted this sword from Sri Lanka, and the crucible steel is basically taking over 100 different types of scrap steel and then melting it together and then forging a sword out of this scrap steel of 100 different types. So normal swords that the Britons would be fighting with and the Romans would be fighting with was actually a single source steel that basically just fell into pieces. And this sword was literally 100 times more powerful than any other sword that people were fighting with at that time. So he had this sword, and it was not going to be broken. And this is all written in Saxo Grammaticus in black and white, in the 12th century, history book, basically, and no one has really seen this. This is a kind of I would say revelation, in the story. And I'm not saying this is the King Arthur, but I'm saying this is probably a very good possibility that this is King Arthur who inspired the story of King Arthur. And the sword is very important because in every great story, like Thor, the god of thunder, he had a hammer, and all the superheroes, they all had their own magical weapons. So the sword has always been the symbol of the male power. So So the bear also of Offer of Angel, in the land of Angle or Angel, both terms are used. The Nordic warriors were actually connected very much to the bear, and probably the Offer also relates to the Osso, and the Ursa Major in the north, they called it the Big Bear. And the young warriors, to actually become a warrior, you needed to wait for. God, I've gone on. Oh, I've got so much there. The young warriors to come into their manhood, they had to go to a bear cave. This is not very pleasant, I must warn you a little bit. To go into a bear cave in Imbolc, which is the 1st of February, where there's still lots of snow in the north, and make the sound of a distressed bear cub. And the mama bear would kind of rise out of her slumber, and then the boy would have a spear and place the spear under her pelt, and then she would have to move down onto the spear, killing her quite quickly, so it wasn't kind of a painful death, but it not nice anyway. And then the boy would have to skin the bear and then wear the bear skin as to warm him from the cold north snow. And then that bear skin, once treated, was his armor for the rest of his life, because the bear skin is very, very thick, and that was the armor. And these people, once they'd gone through this, they were the berserkers. You must have heard of the berserkers, which actually means the bearskins. The berserkers became very famous in the time of the Vikings, because they would basically jump off their boats when they were entering to or attacking a new country. They would jump off their ships and they would take fly agaric mushrooms that would actually send them bonker crazy, and they would run into their enemy just shouting and screaming because they were off their heads on hallucinogenics, mushrooms. So that's why they're going berserk was the term which came from the berserkers, basically. So the bear is not only present in the Brigantia, the bear goddesses of Ireland, the Artios, but bear goddesses were all across Europe, and also the berserkers, the bear warriors, they taking the power of the mama bear, because it's the mama bear that's the head of the bear family, not the papa bear. Everybody thinks that the bear is a male symbol, but actually it's a female symbol of power. But the bear warriors needed and had the knowledge to balance the divine masculine, divine feminine inside them, and that was the balance of the bear and the dragon. So that has always been part of the culture, that the bear represented the inner feminine, the divine feminine in the body, and the dragon was the divine masculine in the body. And to be a great warrior, you needed to have both. So these this is no modern theory. This has been known since the beginning of time, that you needed that balance. So a little bit of the history, that there is evidence that the Angles and the Saxons and the Jutes came over to Britain to help fight. I'm just going to go quite quickly. If anybody's really interested in this and wants a copy of my presentation, do give me a shout and I can send it to you via email or whatever you want, because I'm not going to go through all this information. But this is the evidence. This is the research that I've gone through, where basically offer of angel is mentioned in the history books, mostly in poetry and very kind of symbolically, as it is in the kind of Arthurian legends that we have in this country through the history of the kings of Denmark. This is a very interesting book, actually, well worth getting hold of if you're interested in any of this stuff, by Hugh Montgomery. It's quite out there. It's quite trippy, but he talks about the god kings of Europe, and god actually simply means in the Nordic term as good, because good in Norse is Gott, G-O-D-T. So Gott is basically good people, and they were the good people that were traveling around the known world at that time, bringing and teaching people how to find this self-empowerment inside themselves so they can basically become, good communities. And the Nordic people were also traveling around telling people how to do agriculture, how to do education, and everybody thinks it was the Romans, but actually it was the Nordic people that were really educating people even before the Roman Empire. And actually the Roman Empire came from the Nordic people in the first place. So I've talked a little bit about the Wattle Church. This is a beautiful image here of the Wattle. You might not be able to see it very much, but it's the 12 huts around the Wattle Church. And Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea, who is very much a kind of symbol today of the divine masculine, divine feminine. This is also a very, very good book, also written in the 1200s. It's 1200s. There were lots of books written because that was really when they understood the power of the written word. That actually you can create a history, by writing it down. Which I would say a lot of things actually went wrong when that happened, but with the good intentions of actually writing down the stories, the folk stories, that was good. But then when it was used politically against us, then it wasn't so good. But yeah, this is a fantastic book which talks about the two offers, because of course we have Offa's Dyke, who was Offa of Mercia, and the reason he was called Offa was to honor the original Offa of Anglesey. And also I believe that Offa of Angel in the 5th century was the first king of England, because England means land of Angle land. And no one really knows when the kingdom of England was created, but I think that basically he was the first king because he saved England from being destroyed and brought it back to its original kind of way of being before the Roman Empire completely destroyed it. So yeah, this book is about the two offers and how they're very similar, and kind of explaining their lifetimes, this is pretty much the only book where it's written down. And apparently Offa of Angel, when he moved into this country, because he didn't actually stay in this country, he was very much kind of an overlord, as it was the God Kings, the overlord, and he was interested in kind of going to other countries and seeing if he could basically take over other countries, but not in a kind of world domination kind of way, but in a kind of a trading way, and because he wanted to make connections with people and then leave the country and make it better and help things like the good kings of the past, because basically the Roman Empire destroyed a lot of the old ways of the good kings, the God Kings, that constantly have come through Britain. Even in modern history, the Nordic people have come and helped and sorted out Britain and saved them many other times, not just this time. So I'm just going to go through this. Like I say, if you want a copy of this is a bit of a longer talk that I can go more deeper into it. But this is the interest in the connection to Glastonbury, because Glastonbury Abbey still has the shield that King Arthur was said to have designed, of the equidistant cross and the shrine of Our Lady up in the top corner. It was the shield of Glastonbury town as well for many, many hundreds of years, and that still today is the shield of Glastonbury Abbey. And of course, we have the dragon as part of the Somerset shield. And originally Wales and Somerset was the same land. That's why we both have dragons. The white it is the same, the red dragon in both Somerset, but the red dragon represents the feminine and the white dragon the masculine. So in many of the ancient texts, you'll see Offa's name turning up. Beowulf being one of the more known one. He's mentioned in that as well. So talked about that. So Henry II, if I have time, I don't want to go over the time because I know, it's 7 o'clock, isn't it, that the next speaker's on? So that's okay, we've got time. So Henry II, as I mentioned earlier, he's basically the person that came over from France with the Knight Templars to, because he being a king, you actually can't be a Knight Templar, which is interesting, but he was very much a patron of the Knight Templars, and he brought many of the Knight Templars that had managed to save themselves being massacred and murdered by the Vatican, because they were killing all the Knight Templars and also the Cathars as well. The Knight Templars were from the Cathar tradition, so they were very much honouring the divine feminine and the chivalrous knights and the noble knights of Europe that were kind of taking that on. And Henry II became the King of England, and he brought with him many of the Knights Templars and gave them land in the different ports in London, where the main port in London is, I think it's Temple Gate, right in the centre of the square mile of London. You have the Temple Church, which is well worth visiting if you fancy connecting to that energy. Go and find the Temple Church. And Temple Church is right exactly where the lawyers become sworn into the bar. So you've got the Temple Bar there, where all the lawyers of England are created. You've got the Bank of England there. You've got the law courts there. So it's all around the Knight Templars. They were the power people of that time, you know. And they also were positioned in Bristol, in Liverpool, in all the ports around. And the reason Henry II came to Glastonbury Abbey, was because he wanted to find the bodies of King Arthur and Guinevere, who are said to have been buried in Glastonbury Abbey. And he came in demanding to know where they were buried, and the monk said, "We don't know what you're talking about, you leave us alone, you big bully," and he burnt the whole place down. And the Pope was not very happy with him destroying the Abbey, so he made him basically rebuild the Abbey from scratch. And he was the one that separated the Abbey and Glastonbury Town into two separate entities. And it wasn't until a year after he died that the sorry, I'm being distracted. My dog walking around. It's all right. The monks dug up the bodies that he was said to be looking for, and actually the bodies that he thought were there of King Arthur and Guinevere were actually the bodies, we believe, of Joseph of Arimathea and Mary Magdalene. You see the connection there, and so they took up the bodies and put them in a shrine in the abbey, underneath the abbey, where the subterranean chapel is, which is still called the Joseph of Arimathea Chapel there. The reason that he thought that King Arthur and Guinevere were there was because in the 10th century, St. Dunstan, who was a very, very important abbot, he was not only the abbot of Glastonbury, he was also the Archbishop of Canterbury, so he was the head of the Church of England, and he created a plaque saying, "Here lies the bodies of King Arthur and Guinevere," to protect the true identity of the bodies being Joseph of Arimathea and Mary Magdalene, who were basically considered gods. And if they were discovered and the bodies taken away and horrible things done with them, because in the medieval times that's what they did. They used to break bits off the bodies of the saints and then sell them to different churches all over the world, and then everybody claimed, "Oh, I have the finger of Mary Magdalene," or "I have the skull of Joseph of Arimathea," so they wanted to protect them for that reason. But St. Dunstan of the 10th century, the abbot of Glastonbury, he didn't realize that in the modern times that King Arthur and Guinevere were probably more desired than Joseph of Arimathea and Mary Magdalene, because the Roman Catholic Church actually doesn't recognize the importance of Mary Magdalene and Joseph of Arimathea, even though our previous Pope Francis did actually recognize Mary Magdalene feast day, and hopefully they're continuing doing that, because I think that when he recognized Mary Magdalene feast day was the beginning of the end of the Roman Catholic Church, because they basically built the Roman Catholic Church on the against Mary Magdalene, who was basically the true knowledge of the Christ teachings, 2,000 years ago. So he was the one that was really obsessed with King Arthur, and he basically funded the book, the History of the Kings of England, and he was also very much a Christian. So the book that we know of King Arthur is very much to kind of get us into the mindset that King Arthur was a kind of a Christian savior, but I don't think he really was. I think he was more of a mystic, where he was not one thing or another, but he really was inspired and influenced by all different faiths and traditions, whatever kind of felt right for him, and to help the people to kind of reconnect to their own identity. And there is actually a very interesting connection in the history of the Kings of England, that King Arthur's father, Offa of Angel, he was meant to be a druid, and then Offa had two brothers. One was his name was Ambrosia, and he was meant to have been sent off to an abbey where he trained to become a kind of an abbot, and then he had also a Roman brother. So it's kind of like covering all possibilities. Was King Arthur pagan? Was he Christian? Was he Roman? So it's kind of the History of the Kings of England was very much a poetic book to kind of like to get us thinking in many different ways, and there's a lot of hidden knowledge in there that is still yet to be understood. One which only just kind of came to me recently was the connection of Nineveh, who is the Lady of the Lake. Who was the Lady of the Lake? And then I realized that the Order of Bridget was basically in the middle of a lake in Glastonbury, which on this tiny little island of the Beckery Island, which is the St. Bride's Mound, which was a tiny little island, they were literally living in the middle of a lake. So probably Bridget is the Nineveh, the Lady of the Lake. And Guinevere means, Gwyn means shining, and Avia means beauty. So basically she is the divine feminine. She is the shining beauty of the divine feminine of the woman. And Offa's wife was called Freya, which you can see similarities for Guinevere, Freya. Freya was the goddess of love, and Wien means of. And so basically she was of the goddess of love, very similar to Guinevere. And Merlin, I believe, being an archetype of the Druids. Anybody been to Merlin's Cave in Tintagel? It's a bit closer to home. A few of you must have. Yeah, nice one. Merlin's Cave is on a beach where you have a stream coming down onto the beach, like a little linn. And then you have the ocean, which is the Mer. So I think that Merlin means the coming together of the salt water, the ocean water, which represents the masculine, and then the fresh water coming from Mother Earth represents the feminine. So Merlin is, I think, the balance of the ocean and the fresh water, the fresh and the salt water coming together, the balance of the masculine and feminine. So it's all about the symbolism. And also, if you get the tarot deck nowadays, you get the major arcana, and all of the archetypes in the story of King Arthur that we have are there: the king, the queen, the priest, the priestess, the dark feminine, the healer, the sword, the Excalibur sword is there, the Grail, the search for the Grail, which represents the bloodline Sangreal, the bloodline from started by Mary Magdalene and the family of Christ. And the staff of probably not only Merlin, but also the staff of Joseph of Arimathea as well. So you've got all the symbols there. They're all present there. So here we go. these are kind of all different stories that mention all the words Excalibur. I talked a little bit about Excalibur and the story of Saxo Grammaticus. This is a direct copy of where it is explained in that book of the sword. And the crucible steel, which I just have also spoken about. So now the kind of the return of King Arthur, as I started this talk with the importance of King Arthur, the being of the solar deity, you know, and the hero's quest, which is the inner hero's quest, which is also mentioned in the history of the kings of England. No, actually, sorry, that's wrong. In the book. The Percival, the book written of Percival, which some of you might have read, where he had a vision basically that the young knight Percival was searching for the Holy Grail, and that they received the vision basically where the Grail maidens showed them the Grail, and basically the vision was to get people into their Grail quest, which is an inward journey. It's not an outward journey. You don't go searching around the world, digging things up to find the Holy Grail, you know, because I don't actually believe that the family of Christ brought a Holy Grail from Jerusalem to England. I think, the original symbol wasn't even a Grail or a chalice. It was that Joseph of Arimathea brought with him 2 cruets, which is a jug, kind of enclosed jug, one holding the blood of Christ and one holding the sweat of Christ. But I think that this is actually symbolic also of Mary Magdalene being the blood of Christ, the feminine be represented through the blood, and Joseph of Arimathea being the sweat of Christ, or semen, if you want, representing the masculine. So again, the white and the red, you know, also to do with the red and the white dragons. So it's not about the physical object. The sangreal means holy blood, and I think the Grail is actually Mary Magdalene, because she was the first to receive the Christ consciousness, the message of Christ, and give the message of Christ. That's what a Grail, a chalice is, where you fill it with wine and then you give it. So it's like filling and giving, basically. So I think if you want to connect to the Grail, connect to Mary Magdalene, basically. All right, so that's the end of my little talk. Thank you for sticking with me. And if you have any questions, comments, ideas, please do. Yeah, sir. I actually was not suggesting that at all. I actually don't believe that to be the case, even though, you know, I wouldn't mind if they did. That's completely up to them. But I think that actually Mary Magdalene was Jesus' cousin. That Mary Magdalene's father was Joseph of Arimathea. So first of all, I don't, you know, because they were family, they probably wouldn't think it was a very good idea. But I do believe that Mary Magdalene and Christ were working together, representing the divine masculine, divine feminine, because Magdalene, the term actually Magdalene means priestess of the Magda. Her mother Mary of Magda was of the priestess order, and Magdalene means of Magda. Magda actually represents the almond, which is also connected to the female brain, which is the Magdul and Ungata, I can never say that right, which is the feminine brain, the serpent brain, and then the male brain is the frontal lobal, the monkey brain. Sorry guys, we're the monkeys. The women are the serpents, which is actually to do with the kundalini, yeah? And the almond you find in everything, which is comes from the vesica, which I just need both my hands 1 second, I'm very loud. So it represents the cell of a baby. When you have the cell, the first cell of a baby is split into 2, creating the vesica Pisces, which is you find in the Chalice Well Gardens, and in the middle is the vesica, which is the unity of the masculine and feminine. Then it turns into the cross, the 4 parts of the cells create 4 parts, and then the cells create a 6th part, which is the seed of life, which you've got all around us in Louise's fantastic artwork. And that multiplies and multiplies into the flower of life, creating the body. So it's all present right in the beginning of everybody's life, basically. So Yeah, so the almond, and also in the Jewish tradition, because the family of Christ were actually Essenes, which relate to the Essene tribe, the Druid tribe in Britain, the Essenes, and it actually goes all the way back to Isis. Isis, the tribe of Isis, was very, very spread out across the known world in that time. Paris actually means Isis, people of Isis, so it's all over the place. And Isis and Osiris were the original. Osiris was the original green man, and Isis was the mother of the heavens, basically, the starry heavens. So really they were the original, divine masculine, divine feminine in our culture. I mean, there has been many before that, but in our culture. So yeah, sorry, you've set me off on another rant. No, it's all right. Hopefully it's interesting. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir. Yes, so Cadbury Castle is a very interesting place. It's very strategic in this land here, where there definitely was a fort in that period. But I think that the tribes connected to Offa of Angel when he brought kind of the Angles and also Utes and Saxons over to this country to fight against the invading Picts to help the Britons. They were moving all over the place, so they probably lived there. They probably lived in Wales, in Gloucestershire. There's also the Compton Dundon Hill Fort, which I feel very connected to personally. I think they spent time there as well. So I think they spent time all over the place, There's also Dragon's Hill in Glastonbury, which has a fort on top of it. So they probably move around. They were more kind of nomadic, because they basically if you stay in one place too long, your enemy finds out where you are and they come and kill you. So it's kind of wise to move around. Yep. Fenny Castle. I actually have never ever been there yet. I would love to go there because it's been on my radar a lot, but I just have never ended up going there. But I do get a good vibe from it, definitely. Right. Oh, I must go. Thank you. There's places that like St Edmund's Well, just in Glastonbury. Have you been there yet? It's a sacred site that has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. None of us actually knew it was there. It's on St Edmund's Hill. It's actually a medieval well, stone well, that has been there, for hundreds of years, that the locals have only just connected to. I actually went looking for it and I couldn't find it. It's obviously a pixie well because it kind of eludes a lot of people. But there's loads of places still to be found, and that's the exciting thing, isn't it? Yeah. Well, thank you. Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I'll make more of an effort to go there, yeah. Oh, very nice, yeah. Beautiful, yeah. I love Wookey Hole as well. A very special place. That's where actually the family of Christ are said to have hid out in Wookey Hole Cave when they first got here, in the very sacred cave, like a whirlpool cave in the bottom of Wookey Hole, which has a pool in it, and you go down into the pool and up the other side, and they found loads of dead bodies on the other, because it represented the other world, basically. So so they hung out there, kind of protected there. Yeah, well, yeah, very cool. There's so much. Any other questions? Pleasure. Cheers, Cameron. Actually, Cameron, talking about the seed of life, the flower of life, I met one of you, I think your youngest son, like many years ago, and I think it was the only time I met him, and you were there and you introduced me, and I just got this vision of like abundance of flower of life coming from it. That was a real, that really kind of hit me. I'll never forget that. Yeah, just one of those moments.
They're all doing great. It could have been any one of them.
Yeah, I bet, man. I bet. Well, they've got a fantastic father. Yeah. Any one last question? Say again, sorry?
You mentioned
Freya. Well, Freya is a very common name. Freya is one of the original Nordic gods. Originally, in the ancient Nordic people, they only honoured Odin, Frey and Freya, and Thor. And Odin actually was the sun when the planet was perpendicular, moving on its axis, due north, due south, the sun in the north would create a massive circle around the horizon, and they called that the Odin. Den O, the O that the sun was creating around them, and then Thor was the inner quest, the inner hero, the hero's quest, and Freya were the original humanoids that were basically produced out of animals on this planet by the gods, and the man and the woman like Adam and Eve, basically Freya, that they were the original Adam and Eve, so they kind of represent that. Yeah. Well, it's all connected. They're very, very, they were gods basically. They were the good people. Before we got all kind of worried about what is God and goddess and all this weird stuff. It's just good people really. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Sorry, I missed your talk.
It's all right. It's been recorded if you want to see it.
So I heard that Mary of Magdalene.
Yep. Ephesus. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Sorry, I couldn't tell you. Probably. I mean, her teachings were span time and space. Now she was basically the feminine counterpart of Yeshua, Jesus's masculine energy. So they were basically one and the same person. So there's a lot of connections. Sophia and all that. Yes, actually, she is. She is of the bloodline of Diana. Is of the bloodline of Mary Magdalene through Joseph of Arimathea. You said about the baby. My theory, as others people believe, that when Joseph of Arimathea brought his family over from Israel to Glastonbury, the King Aravagus, who owned the land, or the whole southern part of England, from Cornwall through to London, he gave the family of Christ, because they were actually already, they had family ties already, 12 hides of land, but he also said that he would like to merge the bloodlines, the royal bloodline of the Aravagus bloodline with the Christ bloodline of the Arimathean bloodline. So he asked Joseph of Arimathea to have a child with his daughter, who was the child that Sarah, the Sarah who people think is the child of Mary Magdalene and Christ. But I think the confusion of Sarah's parents is that because Joseph of Arimathea was quite elderly by the time he got to England, that Mary Magdalene, who was the big sister of Sarah, took Sarah under her wing and trained her to become a priestess, basically. So onlookers that didn't have any family, inside information, would see Mary Magdalene with this young girl and assume that she was Mary Magdalene's daughter, but I think it was her sister, basically. And that daughter was the first of the bloodline, very important bloodline, mixture of the royal bloodline and the Christ bloodline, and her lineage went through the Saxons, and then the last princess of the Saxons was Saint Margaret, who was born in exile in France, and then she was betrothed to the King of Scotland. I can't remember his, I think was it David? I don't want to say. And then her lineage went through to Mary Queen of Scots, and Mary Queen of Scots is related to Princess Diana, basically the Spencer family, and that's why they brought her into the royal family to give birth to a purer bloodline of the Christ bloodline, because the Queen, bless her soul, she was more of the Saxe-Coburg bloodline, the Saxon bloodline, which didn't have the same Christ lineage as Diana did. So they brought her in to basically give birth to William, who is far more of the King Arthur energy. But I think that George actually will be the return of the King Arthur energy, because he was actually born on Mary Magdalene feast day, which is interesting. It's a full circle, as everything is full circle. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's very interesting what you just said. Because apparently the royal family to this day are obsessed with the King Arthur.
Oh yeah, they always have been.
Charles's middle name is Arthur.
And so is William's.
Right.
And William, his name is Will I Am Arthur. It's got, but George, which is also a very, used name, is actually the Green Man. that Saint George is the Christianization of the green man. George is in Greek Giorgio, which means geo like geothermal, whatever. Geo means land basically. So George is the man of the land, and you see him bringing the lance or into the mouth of the dragon or onto the head of the dragon. Same with Michael, Archangel Michael, bringing the lance onto the head of the dragon, bringing the consciousness of the heavens into the earth energies, which the dragon represents, you see. So Archangel Michael is the heavenly equivalent of George, who is the green man on the planet. So when you see him in the windows, you always see him kind of casually standing on a dragon and bringing the lance onto the head of the dragon or into the mouth of the dragon. So when you see a window next time, have a look at that. I mean, I'm talking about the Celtic Christian churches of the southwest here, this part of the world. I'm not talking about the Catholic churches where there's lots of blood and gore and all that stuff when it comes to Michael and George. So look around the local churches. All right. So I think we'll wrap things up there, because I know Jeff is okay. One last quick little question. Yeah, one last question.
Jesus spent time with his uncle's business up at
Velvet
Bottom,
the Mendips. Oh well, they
the mine.
yeah the iron ore. That's what they got. Oh, it's tin there, is it? Okay. Oh yeah, lead. Yeah. Okay, right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jos Ramathir had many. His family, going back to King David and King Solomon, they owned all the known mines in that time. So they hear of a mine being opened, and then they would send people to manage it. All over, between here and Israel, everywhere. So they owned all the mines. That's how big they were. So wealthy, their home was the whole of the island of Cyprus. They were considered probably the kind of some of the wealthiest people in the world at that time, because they were considered to be the royal family and also the kind of high priestesses of the Sanhedrin. Because they went back all the King David and King Solomon, so they were extremely important family, important bloodline, and that's why Christ was born from that bloodline, because it all continues. And that's why the royal family wants the bloodline, because they want to be as important as all these people, as important as Christ, basically. And it goes back way back. But so I don't think that Christ actually came to this country in physical form. I think he came in spirit, basically, channeling through Mary Magdalene, channeling through Joseph of Arimathea. So yeah, I believe he did die on the cross, but he lived on through teaching from spirit. I think William Blake wrote Jerusalem about Glastonbury, bringing new Jerusalem. Okay, all right, I don't know about that, but yeah. But all these poets, all these writers, they write and poetically. So something that could seem like kind of physical, proof. It's a lot of it is symbolic, poetic, Because people back in the ancient times, the farmers and the people who worked on the land going to church, they needed to basically to be told these stories as if they are real, but actually it was more symbolic, All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Jeff Stray is on next. Very well worth listening to his talk about the Chartres Cathedral. He's a very learned, wonderful man. Thank you. Pleasure.